you hear the phrases time and time again.
Every Saturday night at midnight, Adult Swim's building you a better cartoon show. We're gonna blow you guys away. Well, what do you know, a tough guy? We call it Toonami.
There's nowhere to run.
Toonami became the home for anime, and one fans couldn't wait to watch.
Toonami itself is one of those things where it's a lot of it's a lot of people's gateways into like discovering anime and like different avenues of media.
And thanks to it being the gateway that it is, Toonami was not only able to inspire fans, but those who now work in the industry today.
Growing up and being like, that kind of like raised me on anime.
It's crazy to think how a block was able to influence individuals the way that it has. And it leads one to wonder, why is that? Why is it that Toonami's able to inspire so many people?
Because we have Tom and Sarah. For real. Sci-Fi didn't have an anthropomorphized like block host running the network at that time period. Then you also had programming depicting those characters and stuff. You know, like there's an anthropomorphic representation of that block that other people don't have.
That was the moment I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be on Toonami so bad. And I begged and like pleaded. That was like on my list of goals to be on Toonami. And it came true. And it was just this moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the right things. I'm doing the right things.
You know, the folks that sort of grew up and, you know, that was their sort of gateway to anime and where they first watched things. You know, you get to say that's me now, you know, like talking to you as like a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or even a 20-year-old and saying, you know, someday you are going to be on here and people are going to be watching you. Like that's unfathomable. And I think, you know, whether or not, even if you didn't grow up with Toonami, it's something that people understand what it is. And so you can point to that and go, yeah, I'm on this cartoon block that's on TV at like crazy o'clock at night. And at least that's something people can understand.
Toonami has a special place in many people's hearts. And now it's time to really dive in as to how a simple cartoon block was able to do so much in building what many would call a Toonami generation of talent. These are their words and stories on what the block means to them.
I can't think of anything else like it.
As anime fans are aware, Toonami is a major reason for the medium being popular in the US. Because of this, Toonami is viewed as the origin point for cultivating a love for anime. And while the block is credited for inspiring fans across the country to enjoy the likes of Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing, the block had a profound effect of inspiring many to pursue a career in voice acting.
It's like a weird double answer because it's subconsciously a ton. You know, it seeped into me incredibly deeply because I was there when it first showed up, and specifically Cowboy Bebop blew my mind. I'm a big science fiction kid, so like I grew up Blade Runner, Alien, you know, all the stuff, and I love noir, I love all that. So when this show came out and I had seen Dragon Ball, I had experienced, you know, versions of anime when I was younger, and I had, you know, the kids on the school bus hitting me with the manga, and I was like, what is this, you know? But the first time I saw Cowboy Bebop, it took me to outer space. It took me, you know, to this like moody jazz vibe that I was like, you can do this with this? And that completely opened everything up. I didn't know that that was going to lead me to where I am now, because at the time I was obsessed with film. I was obsessed with theater. I wanted to be a director. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to do on-camera stuff. I was playing in bands. I had just started playing guitar, and I became obsessed with playing music. And it for almost 20 years, I became a musician in bands. And when I started to take acting more seriously, I had this weird revelation one day. I was playing a video game, and I was just kind of like really soaking up how much, you know, the performances have become so much more lofty, and the cinematic nature of it all has been so, you know, and I was like, wait a minute. I think I really love voice acting. I think this is something I really need to focus on. And a huge part of it is because of that block of Toonami.
You know, I wanted to do voiceover, and I kept thinking about, you know,
is it going to be accessible to me? Am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to, is that something that I can do? And I actually did think about, I've always wanted to do voiceover. Don't you remember, Deneen, when you were a teenager and you were watching Toonami? Seriously, and I was watching these shows. I would be one of those people, whether I was watching anime or watching or playing video games, where I would mute it and then like voice over it myself.
I originally wanted to be a singer. And so I studied music in college, and, I really like put myself through my paces there. And I bought a bunch of equipment that I didn't know how to use, but I was always a fan of anime, not even on the Toonami block. It was just like, oh yeah, this is great. This is fun to watch, and then it started to become less about the anime and more about just acting in general. I fell in love with acting over music, after a certain amount of time passed. And, then I kind of put 2 and 2 together while watching shows like Soul Eater, Full Metal Alchemist, those kind of shows that I was just like, I think I would like to do this, and I think I had always known that I wanted to get into voiceover specifically, because even when I was a kid, I was like doing voices, and I was, doing voices, I was imitating what I heard, and, always, looking for creative ways to do things rather than like, listening, frankly. Like I was that kid that like could never sit still. So, for me, I think the most influential things out of the Toonami block were definitely like Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, it's, I kind of alluded to it earlier too, where it was sort of an element where I felt like I could pursue that feasibly, because part of creating a career plan and having goals is saying, what can I reach at the point that I'm at in my career? And I had the avenues open to me through connections I made and friendships that I had that said, if you target this sort of auditioning and these classes and such, then, the anime dubbing stuff, you can get right in there. And you have to have this professionalism where, you can't just be like, oh my God, I grew up with Toonami and I love Toonami. And, I would love to be an anime dub. It has to be like, anime dubbing, I guess, make a little more money, and, that's kind of a recurring work. And internally, however, screaming like, yes, I would love to do this.
Toonami, growing up on Toonami was one of those things where I was like, man, it was such a inspirational avenue, just as from a creative standpoint, because I loved the art form, and I love anime in general.
I was already doing a lot of acting. I was a child actor. I was mostly focused on music and performing on stage. And Toonami was really this, I didn't really understand what Toonami was supposed to be when I was a kid. It was just like another part of programming that I enjoyed. And so when I was like 12 or 13, this was around the time I started really taking acting seriously. I would stay the night at my friend's house. We'd have pizza and popcorn and whatever, and stay up all night watching Toonami on the weekends after school. And I remember just watching Fooly Cooly. FLCL is like my favorite show. And I remember just wanting to one day, like, and I didn't realize at the time that like it was already cast, but there was one time I was like, I want to be Naota so bad. I want to be in that show. And it didn't click. And I was like, what do I need to do something like that? It wasn't until high school when I looked back at that and I started really taking voiceover seriously that I was like, oh my gosh, like Toonami has always been kind of this back burner thing. Like I see these, I'm like, I love these shows. Why do I love these shows? Oh, because the acting is so fun in it, and it's like you can be these different people, and some of them are the same characters in other shows. So like that was a real revelation where I was like, oh my gosh, Inuyasha is Inuyasha here, but he may be someone else in this show. And I'm like, what? That's blew my mind. So I would say it definitely influenced me later, but there was that back burner thought of like all those memories I had with Toonami that pulled me forward.
I want to be a voice actor because I freaking love anime and I grew up with it. and a big basis of that was Toonami, watching all of those shows on Toonami.
As far as Toonami goes, like, it was incredibly influential. But for me, the heart and soul of it all is the acting and the fact that I can play in these characters' lives and, get to be something different and, bring joy to other people. So, yeah.
Because it captured our attention, Toonami burst onto the scene at the perfect time. Whether it be from their shows, music videos, you name it, Toonami had something special for everyone, which created a home and comfort for fans to turn to.
Dreams are meaningful when you work toward them in the real world. If you merely live within the dreams of other people, it's no different from being dead.
It gives us a flagship, like you said, a home, a place to be. That fans, they know where to find us, they know where they can get it, and it's not like they got to jump through hoops. They don't have to go to a video store and go search in like the anime section, like in the back, old days, and they would get the VHS tapes with like just 2 episodes on it, or the DVDs with like 5 episodes. Like now you are able to watch your episodical television, your anime, and enjoy it like any other show that you would have, which wasn't always the case before. I remember when I first, one of my very first jobs was working at Best Buy, and the anime section was like this little, I mean, it was really sorry. It was very sad. It was depressing. And what's funny is it would actually sell. Like, there would be people that would come in and like buy their anime at Best Buy, and they would buy the VHSs, they would buy the DVD box sets, they would buy all that stuff. And it's so unfortunate because back then, I'm sure you remember, it was expensive, man. Like I looked at some of those prices on some of those box sets or some of those episodes and stuff like that. It's like, good God, but it speaks to the passion of the anime fan. It speaks to the passion of the fan base, that they are willing to go and they will hunt far and wide, and they will pay good money to get their anime. So Toonami, something that you were getting on cable, it's a reward, it's a relief. It's like, oh my gosh,
just like the power-ups, the screams, the action, the adventure, like the high stakes, all that stuff, it's like, it's so magical. That's what I wanted to say, is the magic of it. That's what made me want to, like, I really want to do this. It's so awesome because most anime nerds, we grew up as nerds growing up. So it's like, we get to escape, and if we voice actors, when we're voicing the anime, we can drop our nerdiness for a second and be a cool character for a change.
I will say anime at the beginning, at least, didn't too much influence me wanting to be an actor. It more so influenced my drawing, and for a while I thought I wanted to be an animator. It was sometime in high school when I got into theater that kind of clicked, like, oh hey, cartoons and anime, the people talking are actors. And I love cartoons, I love anime, so it just seemed like the perfect marriage of interests formed into this career, and it just seemed like perfect for me.
It's really interesting, looking at, what other like entertainment things have this kind of like group around it, and Toonami is really unique in that way, that I think it has so much more of a base. A part of that's, its age and the quality of the programming, but really just having, I don't know, there's something that's just like cohesive about it, where people, I think you mentioned, like, it's a comfort. It's something that, especially if you grew up watching The Block, like, it's familiar. It is what you did. And so, there's now more than ever is a time where like familiar comfort is so important. And so getting to do that and experience that in a bigger way, especially in a time where maybe you're not really communicating with people as much as you used to be able to tune in to your favorite stuff at something you know is reliable and is going to give you some happiness on a night, then yeah, that's a particular kind of magic, I think.
If you really, this is to me, to really kind of like break that down into the why it's such a big deal, like bring so many people together, is because it brings people together. So I went to school in Kansas. I was one of like 6 black people of 1,000 in my school. You had the jocks, you had the geeks, you had everything in between, and the 6 people of color. So the funny thing about that, I say this all positively, is that Toonami block was like this middle ground we could all meet and find something about, because let's face it, in your teenage years and your junior high years, and things, life can be a little weird. But you watch these things that are very inspirational, like you watch Dragon Ball, which is just a shonen anime, where it's like, okay, it's something that's very inspirational about never giving up, but you still being the good guy no matter how dark the world is all around you. You look at things like Cowboy Bebop or Gundam, and it's all about overcoming these impossible odds and still trying to keep like a level ahead. Nowadays, something doofy like Outlaw Star to you name it, to Big O. I could go on for hours. It's like this little kind of resounding gong of like a story that's kind of being drilled into us as kids to kind of keep our heads up and keep us sane and keep us happy. And it's so cool. It doesn't matter your background at all, but you watch that and you get together with these other kids who have possibly nothing else in common with you, and you have a bond right there. And that even extends over from not just being a kid to the industry itself, where, let's face it, people might be competing against each other in roles or might be going for the same project. But the project you love is so cool, and because you have that bond with your friends and you want to see your friends win, which is something kind of get instilled into you from those shows back there, constantly cheering people on and seeing people succeed and loving that. When it comes to your adult life and seeing that, I love it.
Fast forward to today, and Toonami is still going strong. Fans are always excited when Saturday rolls around for the chance to see some popular action cartoons air on television. And despite how some might feel Toonami is outdated, the elation people have when their work is aired on the block is something that words cannot describe, which is why the huge achievement of having their voice on Toonami means so much to those who work within the industry.
I don't know. I think part of it is it just is such a prestigious block of entertainment as far as what anime, like, you know, dubbed anime in America is and where it's presented. I think that is a major part of it. I think it's always wonderful stuff, and it's got such incredible talent that we grew up on experiencing. So there is this like kind of echelon that you feel like you're being like allowed into, this like family that's kind of accepting you. And really, I think now especially it's there's such an extraordinary fan base and following and devoted family, you know, the Toonami faithful family. You know, it's like this massive kind of culture almost unto itself. And I think that is what makes it so special and paramount, is that it's not even necessarily about the achievement as a performer necessarily, as it is becoming a part of this like connective tissue that is so special for the whole medium.
It feels like you're kind of like becoming part of a legacy where it's like, oh, I get to be a part of this. I get to be, you know, just something a little bit bigger than you, because it's just so, there are so many people involved behind it, and there's so much passion and creativity put into all these shows, and the fandom is great, and you can just feel it, and you just know it's something different when you get to be a part of it. So that's why I would say it's the crowning achievement, because it's you know, sometimes you'll work on shows that never see the light of day. You know they're out there somewhere, but you know, are you ever going to watch them? Are people ever going to watch them? You know, I'm speaking solely for myself, but I put so much passion and like energy into all the stuff that I work on. I hope and I pray that somebody hears it, because, you know, in that show is like growth. It's hard work. It's like making choices that I never thought I'd have to make before as a character. You know, to me, it's just such an important thing. It's like you're literally giving something of yourself in these characters, and then to have, you know, the privilege of you know, getting to be part of a show that's on Toonami of all things, you know, the thing that you grew up watching. It's like, you know that influenced you so much, you know, growing up. It's so cool. It's beyond explanation, I suppose.
I think because you can point to the TV and say, I'm on that. You know, a lot of folks grow up watching Toonami, and that's where they got their anime. So then to finally be doing that yourself is really cool. I remember, you know, going over to our friend's house and watching Toonami, and yeah, I don't think back in college I would have thought I would ever be on there. It's really exciting for some younger friends of mine who, like, that was their whole childhood, to then get to say I'm on Toonami. I think it's, every time I see that announcement, like, of what Toonami means to me, I get really excited and I cry into my Twitter about what's happening in a good way.
Because, you know, you never really know, like, where your career is going to go. You just kind of, you know, you have this dream of being an actor, a voice actor, model, comedian, or whatever it is in entertainment. But when it comes to voice acting, you don't really expect all this. Like, you're like, okay, I love to do it. I'm pretty good at this form of voice acting. And then you just keep auditioning and auditioning, not getting the role, and then eventually you do get the role. And so it's like all these losses that we've had, and then we finally get a win, and it's something on Toonami is there's nothing like it. You know, finally seeing your name in the credits for the first time, having someone you haven't seen like since elementary school hitting you up, going like, hey, hitting you up on Facebook, hey, I just heard your voice on this show, like, congrats, man. So yeah, it's surreal.
Yeah, I mean, for me specifically, you know, like a lot of folks, I grew up with Toonami, like coming home after school usually, watch those shows, Dragon Ball Z and Rurouni Kenshin, Tenchi Muyo, you know, all dubbed, of course. And that, you know, at the time, I didn't really have the inkling of I could do this too yet. But once I started pursuing my voiceover career, that was back in 2016, I just held on to that as sort of like a nugget of, you know, now I know that stuff gets done out here, and that would be amazing to be a part of it, because Toonami, you know, it's still ongoing. They're still showing that dubbed anime. So yeah, it was kind of like a situation where if I could travel back in time and tell my younger self, hey, you're going to be on Toonami too, like, I'd lose my mind. Sort of like a childhood dream that ended up coming true. That's like a dream that I didn't even know I had almost.
I think it's because I grew up with it. When I was a kid, that was like the one thing that I would stay up late, you know, without my parents knowing, and go and watch like Gundam Wing or Ghost in the Shell. And just, you know, because they also had, you know, back in the day, they had like the kid version of Toonami that would play right after school, which would have like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball and stuff like that. And then Dragon Ball Z, of course. So, I mean, like, it's just because, like, I did grow up with that. That is what I grew up with. That's what got me into anime. And then later into manga. I started off, like, watching it on TV. And then, like, my friend was like, by the way, did you know there's comic books? And I was like, what? And so, but, like, yeah, it was, like, this thing that, you know, not everybody was in the know about too, like the late at night version at least, because yeah, everybody knew about Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball after school, but it was like, did you watch this one show called Gundam Wing? It's on really late at night at like 12 a.m. so you have to sneak out of your room so your parents don't know that you're up so late. But like it's a matter of like having that small community that did know about that, and then also like, you know, growing up and being like, that kind of like raised me on anime, you know? So it's a big deal, because it's like, you know, you watch that as a kid and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I get involved in that? And then when you're finally involved in that, you're like, oh my god, there it is, there's my voice on the thing that I've always wanted to be on, not just in an anime, but specifically on Toonami. That's huge, because that's what I would, be excited to go and watch.
I can say for myself, and probably for a lot of other people, it's because we grew up with Toonami. Like that, I had been watching anime since I was really little, but Toonami is what really opened it up. My generation, especially, like I was in high school, and that's when Gundam Wing and Dragon Ball Z and everything was like the top thing, and so I think being able to get there, it's almost like, wow, it's like a full circle type of thing. Like you watched it, you grew up with it, and then now you're on it, it's that kind of thing where it's like, I think because it means so much to us. And for myself, being able to be on Toonami, again, it's like, what? That's wild. I mean, I'm on the same block that I would watch like Tenchi and Outlaw Star and obsess over it, and now my voice is coming out of characters that are in the same thing. It's wild. Whew.
When it comes to anime and just like dubbing and all, so we were all kids. We all grew up, we started watching this thing, we see that little robot Tom up on there, and all of our favorite shows just be coming onto the screen. And it was the best thing in the world. It was like the highlight. You'd watch your Dragon Ball, your Cowboy Bebop, your Outlaw Star, and you'd watch, and it would blow your mind as a kid because you had like Tom and Jerry and then literal space ninjas. So take a choice. So you'd watch this and you'd think in a kid that one day that'll be me. And as time kind of went on, it was actually really cool to start working, starting theater, on camera, voiceover. But eventually led down to Toonami, which was one of the coolest things because for years I did MC work. And I was at a con in Texas called OniCon. And there we were, I had to about to get on the mic, hype the crowd up and everything, man, do that for the bands, for like ceremonies and the works. And everyone's like, oh, hey, Bill, how you doing? It's like, oh, no, it's Saturday. Hell, I got something I got to do real quick. So I'm with a few friends in the room, and we're watching One Punch Man. And to emphasis on this, One Punch Man was a show I would literally shave my head bald for, put on a suit, and I would do fitness charity events for Tsunami Relief in Japan for this. I loved this show. And then it happened. I'm sitting there with a couple of friends, one being Chris Bevins, and he's like, oh, by the way, check that out. And there it was. I got to hear myself as the villain on One Punch Man being Bakuzan. And I'll be straight up with you, there was some tears right there. When it's like, there it is, the childhood dream made true. And a show that I loved, and it was the dopest thing, man. It really, really was. So, yeah, man, it's everything, brother.
So, my whole family is very, very, into anime. I grew up with the Street Fighter anime movie that was constantly playing in my house. So because Toonami was really the only block where we could watch that media, it ended up just being an important facet of my household. And I moved out of the projects with my family when I was around 7 years old, when I started first grade. And my uncle was like, how would I put it? He was still in the projects. He decided to move in with his girlfriend, who later became his wife and the mother of his 4 kids, and they still lived there. So, but we would visit them really often, and every time I visited them, it was late at night. Like, we would be there, and I'd have like a little sleepover, and my cousin was just born at the time, so it's sort of like, okay, it's a Saturday night, it's late. What am I gonna do? What's on right now? Toonami. It's just like, so we'd watch like Outlaw Star, we'd watch like Speed Racer, Sailor Moon, which was on the block at the time too, I believe, Thundercats, which is anime adjacent and just really fucking awesome. So, it was just a lot of like growing up with the block, and just like my formative memories when I was that young were watching Toonami. Because to me, it's more than a block. This is like my family history. So for me personally, being on Toonami is a big deal. my 3 baby cousins still watch Toonami. My little brother still watches Toonami. And we are like, I want to say 6 to like, the youngest one is turning 4 or whatever. So that's a whole generation and a half of kids watch Toonami, get away with watching Adult Swim, which had Inuyasha on it. So it's like, they really liked that shit. It was great. So for me, like, I grew up with the block because my family was a part of it in terms of like how often they would watch it and how much of like me just being really small and just watching the TV that late is just part of like, it's like I'm going home. It's like I'm not only bringing a smile to my family's face, but it's sort of like, this is what inspired me to do this. And this is a small little thing for me that I just want to do someday before I die.
I think the biggest thing when it comes to Toonami was such a big part of my childhood, and a lot of people's childhood, that at the time it was an escape that was so different than like what we would normally see on television. So when we had these characters come to life through Japanese animation that was so vastly different than what you would see on like Cartoon Network or any other station, it was really cool to be able to say, you know, one day maybe I'll be on there and bring these characters to life. So when I was in Black Clover, it was like kind of a full circle moment because it didn't really set in until later when I saw my names in the credit.
Because a lot of my childhood was Toonami, watching Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z. Like, I would go home from school. Actually, was Pokemon on Toonami? I don't even remember. But I would come home from school and just watch the Toonami block. Like, I'd be like, okay, it's Sailor Moon. Okay, now I get to watch Dragon Ball Z with my brothers. It's a good day. You know, so it's like, even though Toonami's not on like the kid-focused part of Cartoon Network anymore, it's like we get to be a part of that for someone else, in a sense.
I would say that there's a sense of I made it. Like, it's one thing to have it, you know, on like a Crunchyroll or any sort of a streaming platform like a Netflix or something like that. But when it is on broadcast television, that's, you know, that just adds that additional extra layer of just weight to what you're doing. So being, like I said, on a, you know, cable network, a broadcast, you know, channel like that, it just gives it that sense of legitimacy. It gives us that credibility, that sense of, hey, we are here. And not just for 1 or 2 shows. There is a block. There is a date, a time. It is there. It is dedicated. You know where we're going to be, you know, Saturday nights, and we run from this time to this time, and that is it. Come and get it.
Ooh, okay. So, you'll notice this. I'll probably just unload like a million things and make it a little sidetracked, but I'll try and keep it on pace for the most part. I grew up on Toonami, and I definitely didn't move out here in order to do this. I moved out to LA to do the music, and I kind of just found myself in the video game world, which kind of led me into the anime world. And I don't remember, I want to say it was like, it was either JoJo Part 3. I think it was JoJo Part 3 was like the first time I saw my own work on Toonami, and I was like, wow, this is surreal. Like, man, I grew up watching a lot of this stuff, and now I'm like working on it. It's like the first time I worked on Dragon Ball Z. I was kind of like freaking out a little bit, but I'm in the booth like, yeah, that was a good take. Yeah, that's clean. Okay, yeah, we can keep going. But inside, I'm like, oh my god, I'm working on Dragon Ball Z. This is crazy. So seeing my stuff on Toonami is incredibly surreal, and I don't know how to explain the feeling, but it's really nice. And a lot of times I forget, because sometimes I don't have cable or anything, so most of the time I don't get to watch Toonami unless I'm like going to a friend's house and they have it on in the background or something, or we're going over to watch. We used to do a thing over with my buddy Brandon Winkler when Sword Art was airing consistently, because he was Yu-Gi-Oh! In that. and we would go over and watch the show, and it was really cool seeing the stuff that we worked on together, and just in general that I worked on Toonami stuff because it's really cool. Toonami itself is one of those things where it's a lot of it's a lot of people's gateways into like discovering anime and like different avenues of media. And just being like a part of that discovery is like really cool, you know?
For me, the coolest part about being on Toonami is getting to connect with everybody through social media. Like, I come from theater, and so, you know, theater is like a shared experience, and you're sort of telling a story with this room full of people, and you all sort of go on that ride together. And when you work on, you know, a game or animation or anime, you know, you are working with your director and engineers and anyone else, but you're in a box by yourself. And so what's really cool about Toonami that I found, you know, watching like Sword Art Online and JoJo is like everyone's sort of like live tweeting it together. And so you're having this experience as a group, which was so unique to me. It was like getting to do theater again of, you know, we're all watching it at the same time. We're all talking about it on the commercial breaks. The one event that I remember standing out was the night SAO crashed and like the broadcast froze at a crucial moment. And it was like, did that happen to you? Did that happen to you? Is that, oh, it's all of us, you know, and what's going to happen and what are they going to do? And it was a really unique experience to have with other people. And so I think that's my favorite thing about being on Toonami is getting to, you know, watch it alongside people all over the world and experience it together.
So why Toonami? Why was this block able to inspire so much? While many grew up on Toonami, it wasn't as if anime was only on Cartoon Network. You could find Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and even Card Captors back on Kids WB. And on Fox Kids, you would find Sonic X, Escaflowne, and other anime series. So Toonami wasn't the only place you could find anime, but the block provided more for fans to enjoy the anime showcased. And because of how Toonami entertained their fans, their programming and the block itself resonated with everyone.
Toonami's new lineup hits harder than ever.
Are you ready for it?
Hell yeah! Let's do this!
So it was like just that perfect storm and like this perfect show that came on, because think about it, you're in middle school. You know, you're 13, 14, 15, around that age, and you've kind of outgrown cartoons. Like I didn't watch anything that was on Nickelodeon anymore. I kind of graduated from that demographic. But I was still searching for something. And like I said, just kind of right place, right time, Toonami came on, and you have Dragon Ball Z, and what was great about it was animated, so they could do over-the-top, crazy stuff that was just insane, things that you had never seen before. But it was a level of storytelling where it appealed to 20-somethings, 30-somethings, you know, teenagers, a wide variety of ages and demographics. But for me, as someone that was of that 13, 15-year demographic, it never talked down to me. It treated me as an equal, the same way that you would have those 20-year-olds, those 30-year-olds. And so it was great to watch. It's like I said, it was just this perfect storm of just crazy, over-the-top animation and action, and it captured my imagination, is what it did. And it, again, it was just great, episodic storytelling that I can tune in and watch each and every day. And when you're at that age, like that's all you want. That's perfect. So it gave me a respect for storytelling and character building and arcs.
It's strange. I think they've done this. They just had this way of like capturing your attention. Because I remember when I first watched Toonami, I think it was like when, I want to say it was like maybe not Bebop, but it was like right around the Bebop time. It was right around when it first started. But I remember just always having my attention captured. Because if I didn't know what was going on, there would be times where it would be like, oh, I don't know what this show that's coming on next. Maybe I'll just stay. It looks kind of cool. And then afterwards, I'd be like, man, that was awesome. I need to watch this show. This is really cool. Yo, you seen Gundam Wing? This is kind of dope. Toonami has always known how to get that blend of, hey, we have these kinds of shows, we have these kinds of shows, we have these kinds of shows. And every single one is, like, even the Toonami block now is just full of different kinds of shows. And that's what one of the cool things about it is that if show number 1 on your block isn't really your taste, then show number 2 might be, or show number 3, or maybe every single show is like on your level and you enjoy it. I think they've just done a really great job at capturing and holding people's attention, because it's just this alternate source of media that wasn't really readily available for a long time, and so many people grew up with it. So when Toonami initially was down for however many years, it was, everyone was super upset about it, and that sucked. But then when it announced the comeback, it was like a great day. Everyone was so hyped about it.
I think it's so special that Toonami in particular has had such like an effect on each generation in different ways. Back when I was a kid and Toonami was a thing, anime was such a niche. Like, I was made fun of for loving anime, and like, I had my Dragon Ball Z shirt, and everybody was like, "What is that? Oh, you're into that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm into that." It's crazy that just a little block, of just handful of shows, could. It's crazy that it does like just inspire people to get into this field, and that in itself is unique. You don't see it anymore. You're right. You're absolutely right. You don't see that anymore. I think it still continues to inspire people today to get into VO and to give their shot at this. And I have to say, I totally understand why. The passion and the love that the fans show towards everything Toonami and all of us as voice actors and their favorite shows. It's humbling, it reminds you that, like, you're doing this and people are moved by it. And that is so cool to me. And I know I sound like a broken record here, but I am incredibly grateful.
Well, since it was a lot of people's first introduction to anime, it's always going to have that over anything. Also, the nostalgia of the people who first saw it when it first came out, and then they told their children, now they're telling their children. And it has that sort of since it was everyone's a lot of people's first time watching anime, it's like it has that. I keep on using the term magic. It's magical. And unlike, the streaming sites, you can't binge, like, on Toonami, you can't really binge a whole season of an anime. You just gotta like watch it like 1 or 2 episodes at a time, depending on how much episodes they have during that day or that night. And so it makes you look forward to the next, when the next episode comes on. So yeah, I'm gonna just say that it's the first to do it and it's magical. Make a long story short,
like to go back to the AMV thing. Like, I remember they always did the AMV stuff, and I never knew a lot of people who did those personally, but I feel like they created that trend for people. Like, remember YouTube's early days where everything was an AMV? It was like Dragon Ball Z music video with Chop Suey by System of a Down, and every AMV was like the coolest thing, and you could always find like these cool and they were it was like that same kind of thing. They like Toonami kind of created that thing. Now that I think about it, like, they were the reason for that influx of like AMV content on YouTube. Dare I say, YouTube probably wouldn't have been as immensely popular at the beginning because of, stuff like that. So yeah, it's got, like, really thinking about it, now that I'm actually thinking about it, Toonami paved the way for a lot of different sources of media, even YouTube, because it's like sometimes we didn't want to wait for sometimes we didn't want to wait for the you know, the next episode of Naruto to air, so we'd be like, okay, Naruto sub part 1 of 3 on YouTube, and the subtitles may or may not be there, or it's a Rickroll video, you know. But I feel like a lot of that kind of branches from like, hey, Toonami got us hooked on this idea of like, oh man, I can't wait for next week. I can't wait for next week. I can't wait for next week. Funny enough, there are shows that I don't really enjoy as much because I'm one of those guys who will just binge a show. And I feel like because Toonami forces you to take that break, it gives you that feeling of like, oh, I can't wait for next episode. And we don't really get that as much now because of, you know, because you can just watch an entire series from top to bottom. But at the same time, you know, simuldubbing is a thing now. So it's like, man, I watched this episode of Fire Force and dang, that was good. I can't wait for next week. And now I have to wait a whole week for that. And it's, we still have that trend of like, nope, you're stuck till next week before the next episode kind of airs. And that really, that Toonami is probably to praise or blame for all of those kind of feelings of like, man, Toonami is probably the source of all of my anxiety from my young age, from just all of the next time on Toonami's something bad Kyle Bear impression, you know?
Because we have Tom and Sarah. For real. Sci-Fi didn't have an anthropomorphized, like, block host running the network at that time period. Then you also had programming depicting those characters and stuff. You know, like, there's an anthropomorphic representation of that block that other people don't have. So if you have Tom around, he's like, hey, we're going to watch Toonami and I'm going to be mad chill and Sarah and I are going to do a game review or whatever. There is a personality to it that other competing anime blocks didn't really have. We have Tom and Sarah. We have characters that feel real to us, that are fleshed out, have distinct personalities and styles to them that we associate with the block. So since we have that personification of the actual block, we can see it more easily as a partner, brother, cousin, as opposed to just, it airs anime. Plus you also have the game reviews because, you know, we all have attachments to that block. It feels like, hey, you know, you can roll with the actual block now that's been there for you since you were young, you know? So, yeah, I mean, of course it feels like coming home. And not just that, but Toonami persevered. It didn't just, like, it left at one point. It was gone. And then it came back. So, of course, it's going to feel like coming home if you've been away from home for a little while.
And it might be due to the nature of Toonami's content that organically built a community that not only loves anime, but creates an outlet for young minds to express their love.
Drop what you're doing and find cover now!
I'm gonna beat up every last one of them!
Carnage begin!
Yeah, it's, you know, I think a lot of the anime at the time, you know, when we were younger, I think we sort of absorb ideas and concepts and add them to sort of our lexicon of behavior without really even being cognizant of it. And, you know, my favorite show is Outlaw Star, which I originally saw on Toonami. And, you know, you think about Gene and sort of his drive and motivation, you know, the way that he brings his friends together. Or even stuff like DBZ, you know, and that level of, because at the surface level, it's like, you know, cool action, great fights, love it. And then below that is sort of all of the, you know, the in just shonen anime at all, maybe the hot-blooded spirit and fighting spirit and, you know, having that goal and really driving for it. You know, just watching those cartoons and anime when we're younger, I think we do absorb those sorts of things without even realizing it. Like I was saying before, you know, it's not something I could have written down or really talked about, but I think everybody, you know, I can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of folks who were kids at the time and consumed that sort of stuff probably had that same similar feeling of, that I can do it if I just have the motivation and the drive and the fighting spirit.
Like me personally, I kind of just accidentally stepped in a puddle of a great series and then got stuck, and then, was stuck here ever since. But I know a lot of people were like, man, I want to do that. That's really cool. I want to do that. That's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, that is pretty cool, huh?
We lost our minds. I'm like, you're what? It only made the friendship so much stronger. Like all the dumb stuff we want to do online and whatnot to make fun of that. But it's good stuff, man. Like we're all cheering for each other, and we're all like still fans of projects we're in. Also, of course, pursuing the acting craft. But we geek out just as much as y'all, especially when moments like that. It's great.
Whenever someone gets their first show that's on Toonami, we're like, welcome to the Toonami fam, yeah! And it is just this exciting thing for someone to be on the national television in an anime, So definitely there's a bit of camaraderie with it.
It's always been a haven for me, and then it's even more of a haven now because now all of my friends are on it. It's always so exciting when I get to see another thing that, like, my Kellen Goff, I consider like one of my brothers. He's somebody that, like, anytime he's like, I'm in My Hero Academia, or I think he just announced another character that's going to be on Toonami, and then even, as I said, Zeno, I also consider him a brother. He and it's because we all started taking a lot of the same acting classes around the same time, but he just announced that he was on the Fire Brigade show, which I haven't started watching yet, so don't tell me anything. But like it's even more of a haven because I'm like, look, all of my friends are on it. Or like Kaylee Mills is in Sword Art, which plays on there, as Alice. But that's what I mean is that, like, the voice acting community is a very small, tight-knit community. And it's also full of people that really do care about each other. I mean, I've done on-camera and theater my whole life, and then when I made the switch into voiceover, it shocked me how people, it was not a mean competition. It was a friendly competition. It was like, oh, I didn't book that role, but you did? Good. I'm glad you booked it. I'm glad my friend booked it. And that doesn't exist in on-camera. It's like, I can't be friends with you because you're my competition. Versus here, it's like, hey, did you get that audition? You didn't? Let me see if I can get you in on that audition. And I'm like, I'm your competition at that point. Yeah, I know. Like, that's normal, though. We all try to work together to get auditions and to get roles and to get involved in different studios. And so Toonami is definitely, like, because now we're all on that, it's like a safe haven for all of us. It's a home.
I'm so excited and I am so nervous because I need to like really bring it 1,000% because there's so many people that this matters to, not just me. And I was freaking out and I when I went in to do the sessions, there was this sense of like, I felt so connected to the character. I felt so connected to how much, what's beautiful about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is how much can happen in just 1 or 2 episodes. Like, characters go on such a ride. There is such development in so little time. And I was just given such a gift to be able to be a part of that show and to have that character. So, like, playing Squalo was amazing. And the reaction from people was so generous. I mean, from, like, the creative cosplays people do, like the artwork, it's extraordinary.
People who aren't necessarily anime fans, who go to conventions and are familiar with like Crunchyroll and Funimation and stuff, they know these shows that are on Toonami because it's on a Cartoon Network, and Cartoon Network is very popular. And so I think that it helps have a bigger range. It reaches more people, which means a lot to, I know for myself, because I have so many, friends who don't necessarily like anime, and by that, I mean, they're just not into it. It's not their thing. But when I say that I have a show and I can tell them that it's on Cartoon Network, I've actually had some friends who are able to watch it now, and they actually enjoy it because it's, they get to hear me and then they get into the show. So I think that's why, it's really important because it's not just the stereotypical anime. It's Toonami. It's Cartoon Network. It's anybody can watch it.
It's nearly impossible to pinpoint exactly what makes Toonami so special. It adds a little bit of everything. And the fact that it does more than simply entertain no doubt plays a part as to why so many people care about Toonami. The block has taught many important things for us, whether it be about respect, hatred, bullying, all different types of things Toonami has sat down and discussed with us. And I think that plays a huge part into why this block is so special to people. It'll touch on difficult subjects, and maybe some that we don't want to hear, but we all know that it's important, and it's something that they will never back down from.
I think it's time we talked about respect, how to earn it, when to give it, and what it's good for.
Brought a tear to my eye when I heard Tom, aka Steve Bloom, say Black Lives Matter. I think it's because since there's an anime for everyone, and like anime's so mainstream now, and we're all, like you mentioned before, everyone's coming together. There's an understanding of like, we're all equal. This is where this is like a huge hub that we can come together, and like, there's no fighting, there's no, discrimination. We're all just nerds, and, our power's over 9,000.
That's interesting. And I'll be real with you, man. You watch things like these cartoons and anime, kind of similar wavelength there, and you see these big stories, and you see this acting, and the acting is just putting like your soul either onto the mic or onto the screen, portraying an absolute reality in situations that some people can kind of sync with and some can't, but they can still be inspired by and be affected by, reach through of what they're seeing or hearing. And with that there, it'll reach you. It can inspire you, and it can actually make you think to yourself, in some way, shape, or form, man, I've been there. I have been there, and I get it. And you keep watching. And maybe not. Like, I'm not gonna blow up planets or pick up a giant space suit or, be Samurai Jack and do all that. But the fact of the matter is, you watch it like, that's cool. And there's gonna be those one little, like, almost call them filler episodes where things get kind of real. And you see things like that, and that would get to me. An example, this is being 100% real with you. When it comes to specifically the Toonami block, man, I remember looking at like the cast of like just Cowboy Bebop. I'm going to bring that show up because that was probably one of my favorite shows of all, like, as a child, to see onto the screen, because it was amazing. And the character of like Jet Black, like, this guy is so cool. Jet Gets, he looks like everybody's favorite uncle. And I look up, this guy's name is Bo Billingsley. Oh, that's cool. This is a brother. Oh, shoot. And here's the fun thing about this, man. We're going to go a little dark and a little light, but I'm going to tell you why. As like a person of color, we'll look at things like the Floyd incident. Now, this is the negative part of it. You see a man getting his neck just knelt on for about 9 minutes, 8 minutes, 46 seconds to be precise. And he's suffering. Granted, you can talk all about him, but the fact of the matter is, when you see things like that, you see it and you get it because in some way, shape, or form, you've been there. Which is why people rallied up, no matter what, to make sure that this would just stop, right? Because we see ourselves in that. But on the other hand of that, the positive aspect of that can also be true. When you see things like your Phil Lamar's, your Bo Billingsley, your Keith Silverstein's, and I see them voicing these really cool characters in really cool situations. Some I can really relate to, some are blowing up starships or, robbing cartels and crap like that you see in like, the cooler cartoons. And I see that and I think to myself as a kid, and even down to today, it's like, wow, someone who looks like me is doing some really cool things and bringing life to these really cool characters on screen. Maybe, you know what? I work hard enough. One day I can do that too. And the cool thing is, my man, that seeing that and seeing people I brought up earlier inspired me to become kind of that down the road. So that's it for me, man. Kind of giving you 1,000% of an answer to your question.
Yeah, I think, for anything we do, it's exciting when we get to work on projects that are fun or interesting or are fun to act in. But it's also another thing to feel like, you're on a platform that thinks the way you do and supports people and experiences that you support. And it makes, I think, watching the anime community from the acting side become more inclusive, become more diverse, as it's long overdue. Getting to be involved with shows or even just a channel that says, hey, we're here for you and we support you right there, you at home. I think that's incredible. And, now, if you're a kid growing up watching stuff, you can hear a person who looks like you in a show on a channel that says, hey, you're safe here and we support you and you matter to us. That's a really different experience than maybe you could have had 5, 10, 20 years ago. And I think, that does go a long way into inspiring fans, inspiring new actors, engineers, script adapters, to really feel like this is a safe place for me, and to have a community of, like-minded people who enjoy the thing you do, but also support you as a human. I grew up watching Nickelodeon and all the Warner cartoons after school and TGIF, but I don't think there was ever I wasn't going on to BBS's and being like, man, did you catch that sweet episode of Family Matters? That wasn't my childhood. But now, you can go online and, find a podcast, find a website, find a bunch of streams, built around this whole experience and interact with other people in a way I think that, can be cursory, can just be, oh my God, did you see that? But can be a lot more meaningful, and building friendships and building experiences with other fans, with actors, with creators, and really, having a sense of something that's more than just a bunch of shows that happen to be in a row.
You're absolutely right. It's crazy because, sometimes you can get so focused on the shows, you don't necessarily forget those things, but oh my goodness, I remember Tom spoke out again for Black Lives Matter, and I was like, wow, that is incredible. That is insane, and I was just so proud of Toonami and everyone, and Steve Bloom, and for standing up for what's right in the world. It's a very mature and real place. You're right. It just doesn't talk down to its audience. And yeah, thinking about it, it's crazy. I don't watch too much TV these days, but the more I think about it, it's like, wow, you're right. Everybody's oh, happy-go-lucky all the time. It's just, and then Toonami's like, hey, I'm going to sit you down 2 minutes. Let's get real. And I like it.
Absolutely, my man. Absolutely, because Bleach is a great example. It's an amazing anime. I think it's coming back too, actually. But I was actually talking to Tony about that because he's a Ukirora, and then he was making fun of the fact that he's Puerto Rican, and he was like, "It's Hueco Mundo. Why are you saying Hueco Mundo?" It's like, well, right, set it in stone. It's like, God damn it. That said, a lot of these animes out there, like Bleach, for example, the entire first couple arcs, it's like, okay, this is really old system, which is actually kind of messed up. Okay, let's talk about this. And when it comes to those animes, like Bleach, for example, he's getting constant, lack of a better term, Zenkai boost up the wazoo. Eventually, he's fighting God. But the point of the matter is you do need to attack it. And there are ways about that. And I would say physically punching someone in there, 9 times out of 10 is not the right thing, unless they're, a Nazi coming at you with a gun. But anyway, it's the point is to sit there and look them into the face and actually confront. You want to fight about it? Do some speeches. Do the emails. Meet them in person. Talk to people. If you inspire one person, they're going to inspire 2 more. And look at things like Relina Peacecraft and her cool brother, who's not, he's off-brand Char Aznavour, but I still think he's really cool. But it's the point of matter is he's trying to go about that in a very diplomatic way. I think it's more important to the point where, we'll face it, the Gundam pilots are incredibly cool, but maybe, sending children out there to murder thousands of people with these super-powered machines is a little too far. But I will watch it any day of the week. That said, you're right. When it comes to taking on these hierarchies and doing those diplomatic ways of handling it, is the best way. For instance, if I were to walk up and just punch a dude in the face, well, more than likely it's not going to continue the argument, and I've proved the point that I'm now apparently a very, very violent person. But you know what I mean.
Those stories do have themes of being the underdog and overcoming obstacles that are systemic or set in your way, or like, you can't be king of the pirates, you're a kid. Like, you know, it's like that. Like, that stuff we relate to. So, you know, it's getting a little bit better, I think. People are recognizing that is the case. So, you know, it is what it is, and I'm very glad that they've made an open statement about certain things that have been happening in the world today. Especially because, like, real talk, no one loves Toonami quite like the Hood does. I'll be very real with you.
So in a lot of ways, the content as well as the voice performances on the block have helped create this new wave of talent in the anime industry. Some might argue that we could call this the Toonami generation of talent. Much like the legends in sports and entertainment, it was this block that helped spark a passion in acting and hopefully continue that trend for the future generations down the road.
Yeah, I think when we talk about the Toonami generation, it's a group of like performers that, you know, may have been exposed to anime before Toonami, but that was like the mainstream way of watching anime, and it really struck a chord with me because I look back, you know, years later, and I look back and I think about all the shows I watched even before that, you know, like Sailor Moon, Speed Racer, Pokemon, Digimon, all these shows that are anime, but they're not, I didn't think of them as anime back then. And I think what Toonami was able to do was to introduce it in a very smart and strategic way to my generation of actors. And what it did is it bit us. It was like a bug that was like, this is anime and this is something that is mainstream.
Well, and like also, you know, because especially when Toonami started, it started when I was a kid. So yeah, all of these people that are newer VAs now, we did grow up on it. And so all of the VAs that started in Toonami, like Mary Elizabeth and Steve Blue and people like that, you know, they were the pioneers into this whole like, let's get anime to be more mainstream. They were like, Toonami was kind of even the start of making anime mainstream. You know, like my mom always says, you know, back in the day she had Speed Racer, but she even said, like, you know, when you were a kid though, you definitely had that program that showed you a lot more anime, whereas we literally only had like one or two that would show. And Toonami was kind of the push of being like, no, we should show this and it can be mainstream. And it started that. So that way, when the internet started up, all of a sudden it was like, okay, now we have even another platform to show this anime, you know, and stuff like that. And yeah, like we all grew up on it. So it's definitely like one of those things of like, it's a stepping stone of being like, yes, I made it.
You know, it's funny, like I mean, I'm not one to be precious about any kind of moniker. I think, you know, it's the kind of to be looked at and appreciated under any light is surreal to me. So I'm grateful that anybody wants to call me anything besides, you know, asshole. You know, I think it's that weird thing where it's like, as an actor, I hope I get to be a part of a million different things, you know. And as we said before, like, this feels, you know, really very much like just the beginning. I hope I can keep doing stuff on Toonami forever, for as long as it's on.
Yeah, I can't speak for anyone else, but I know for me personally, like, I put my all into my performance. Actually, I'll say that all my friends that I know that do anime, they put their all into their performances too. But for me, like, there's a lot of pressure because since more people are watching anime, it's more accessible to people, like on Crunchyroll or Funimation. Netflix, pretty much every streaming app has some anime on there. You know, my little nephew watches anime. My cousins watch anime. You know, so there's more eyes on us than ever. And like now there's cons, people can see us. I'm not sure when cons first started, where voice actors appeared there, but now that, you know, a lot of us are, you know, this new generation, we're a lot more into social media, We're a lot more making appearances. We're doing more like the shows are popular, and we have fans can connect with us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And so yeah, we get to hear their feedback more so than ever. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure on us right now.
Like, I don't know that it's the only thing that these actors do anyway, you know, like, and so I think that is as cool. Like, I love it. It's a cool moniker, but I do think that, you know, so many of us, like, we're doing so many things all at once that this is like a really awesome, you know, piece of the pie that we get to be, you know, chewing on. But I mean, I've only been on one show on Toonami, and it's, you know, it's the only thing that I've gotten to do out of that, and most of the work I do hasn't been on it. So it's like I feel like I'm lucky to be invited to the dinner table kind of thing. You know what I mean?
No, I think it's awesome because anime deserves this kind of recognition. It was always kind of you know, through the 90s and the early 2000s, it was kind of a shunned, nerdy thing, but it's becoming more mainstream, and that means more people will get to find joy through anime.
And then, you know, I hear from colleagues all the time who write in the industry, who direct, who act, that talk about how they loved all the aspects of what the Toonami block was. And I think a lot of them do, you know, bring Toonami up a lot when it comes to what inspired them to want to write or what inspired them to want to be a part of the production somehow. And I think just building upon that, even watching Toonami now, like watching the new block of shows and being like, these are things that, like, I guess it's weird because, like, I have a weird, like, out-of-body experience with seeing shows that I know we're working on, like at Funimation and Sentai, and being like, that's something that we're working on, that's cool. Like, I know it's on Toonami. But before it was like, I don't know what's coming next, what can we do? And I think it's this weird dichotomy of, like, achieving our goals as that generation, but also experiencing Toonami in a different light for the first time. And I don't think if I skipped over Toonami when I was younger, I don't think I would have been into anime, or I don't think I would have been, you know, as into voiceover as I wanted to. And I think a lot of people feel that because it, like I said, it was the one way, the mainstream way that was on television to watch anime. And if we weren't exposed to that, who knows where we would be with the anime industry. So
the reason why that is not just because we grew up with a space for the block. It was also because that space on the block showcased the work of all those people that we looked up to when we were kids, like the Colleen Klinkenbeards, the Steve Blooms, the Yuri Lowendahls. We know those names because we watched the network, and the network, the block, was really the only place after a while where we could specifically see that work. So yes, the block is extremely important in showcasing this particular medium that the same few people tend to work in all the time. But it's those people that are on the block consistently that inspire the younger generation to do what they do. So yeah, I'd say there is a Toonami generation, specifically because Toonami is directly responsible for airing the content that we are exposed to. And there's a lot of names that we tend to see pop up over and over again. And we're just like, wow, he's in this show and this show. I'm gonna watch both shows and I'm gonna form an opinion of it. And I'm just gonna be like, wow, he's really good here and here. I wanna do that when I grow up. And that was definitely me. So, especially when you have a lot of shows from one company on the network, like a lot of multiple Funimation shows, for instance, where they might use the same actors over and over again. So you'll see someone in this show and then you'll see someone in another show. So because of that, you know, there are actors on the network that get a lot of airtime and a lot of screen time. And Toonami is responsible for delivering this specific media to us. So that's why I think we tend to, like, idolize the people that we also heard growing up, as opposed to just the block. Because the block is responsible for making it accessible, but these people are responsible for those performances. We just had to use the block to gain access to those performances.
Well, it's funny because, you know, I sometimes lose track of that kind of mindset, and I feel like that's any actor. But like, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, well, I've only done this. And, you know, it kind of feels that way right now. I'm still kind of really early on in my career. But, you know, just thinking about that, like, that's like, ooh, like you like my work back then? You know, that's what I think I'm gonna be more like. But no, I loved voicing Yu-Gi-Oh. You know, he's such a relatable character to a lot of people, I feel like, you know. And it was the first time in Sword Art where I found a character that really, you know, resonated with me, funny enough. And it was so funny. It was so funny. This is okay, hold on, I'll address this in a second, but it's a good story. But overall, in 10 years, if somebody comes up to me and is like, hey, you know, you're what got me into voiceover and now I'm doing it, I might need a minute, because it's one of those things where it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I'm moved by that. I'd be incredibly moved by that.
Toonami has returned to providing amazing content since 2012, and it's still going strong. While the landscape of the anime industry has changed dramatically, Toonami is still the place to be if you're an anime fan. And not only has this home been a source of inspiration and comfort, but Toonami has also sparked the passion and drive to work within the industry. Thanks to the performances from its Cartoon Network days, those who were once simply fans looking on the outside are now doing what they dreamed about and hearing their performances on the block, however that may be. Anime wouldn't be as popular if it wasn't for Toonami, and the fact that it has cultivated this passion from those who now flood the industry is something truly special. It's hard to pin down what Toonami means for everyone, but thankfully, it's still around to continue what it's been doing all these years, building you a better cartoon show.
I was doing additional voices for Megalobox, and that was before Sword Art Online and JoJo's. And I know for myself and some of the other people who were doing additional voices for Megalobox, we were so psyched because our names are going to be on a show on Toonami. And it didn't matter what we were doing, because additional voices and even incidentals, which are, you know, roles that are just like a couple of lines here and there, they are just as important as a lead or a supporting role, because we all come together to make that and you get the credit. And so, yeah, I think no matter what you do, once you see your name up there on a Toonami show, it is that crowning achievement.
It was surreal. I mean, it's always great whenever you work on something as a voice actor that it's like, hey, there's that commercial, there's that film, there's that video game, there's that. And so being able to tune in on a Saturday night, you know, I don't remember what time it was, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, something like that. And it's like, I'm on TV. This is really cool. Like, there's just something, it's great to belong and be a part of something that is just bigger than yourself. It's surreal. As I had said before, growing up and watching the original Toonami block, and now we have a generation of voice talent that grew up with it, and now we are able to directly influence what is being put out there, and it's amazing. There's nothing quite like it.
Yeah, that's I think that goes back to what I was saying about that sort of shared experience that we had as kids watching Toonami. That then means that when I interact with a new person, you know, maybe be it at a class or an event or a con or something. Hey, remember when we all went to cons? You know, if I interact with somebody and we click, it might be because we have the same sorts of sensibilities when it comes to the fiction we enjoy. And maybe, you know, we watch more or less anime, but if we were kids and we watched anime, and, you know, I can strike up a conversation about Outlaw Star or Rurouni Kenshin or what have you from, you know, back in the day, then yeah, I'm probably going to get along with that person. And that drive and that motivation that we might share, you know, whether that is attributed back to Toonami or not, means that we form that sense of camaraderie naturally. And I think that's why you see so much support in this community and between colleagues because it's genuine friendship and camaraderie.
Yes, I look forward to when I can have more work on Toonami, and the reason it's so exciting is because there's not really another platform for anime on cable network television. And then for a lot of us, that was our childhood, was watching anime. That was our introduction to anime. So for many voice actors, it kind of comes full circle. We started as these young fans that would get to sit around their TV on Saturdays or after school and watch all the animes and, draw all the animes. And now we're all in our, 20s to 30s, and we get to be in the anime on TV, network television, and then other people get to watch it, and it's very special.
It's like, oh my gosh, I did it. I did exactly what my 7-year-old said that I wanted to do. I did it. I don't even, and it's such a weird thing because I definitely would say I have a long way to go with my career, but at the same time, it's like, oh my gosh, I was able to hit that milestone. Great, what's my next one? Especially, once One Punch Man gets another season, that's another time that I'm gonna be on Toonami again. And it just keeps going as long as you keep at acting, and keep going to classes and stuff like that. So.
It doesn't feel real until you see it and you hear it. I've certainly had experiences where you're like, did I make it into the broadcast? Is it me? I remember the first thing I did for Toonami was incidentals for JoJo. And so you're like, it was right in the opening of the show though. And I'm just like, oh, that's me. That was my voice. That was my voice for the commercial. What? Cool. But then, seeing that at the end, seeing your name along with people that you admire, along with your friends, it makes it, you're like, okay, it's real. This is a thing that I didn't, it's not like a dream. This actually happened. I did the thing. Not everything always credits. So it's nice when you're on a show where you can screenshot that and send it to family or friend.
Then it hit me because then I was like, oh wait, this is on Toonami. And that was the first time that I'd seen my name in credits on Toonami and as Pablo Espuma. And it was just so surreal because it was very emotional. I was trying to find it because I don't have cable. So I used all streaming services. So when Black Clover's episode came out, when I was in it, I was messaging my friends. I'm like, I know you guys have cable. I know you watch Toonami. I need you to take a picture of my name in the credits so I have it because I want to see if it's real. And it was. And it was the moment I think where I realized this is where I'm supposed to be. And people really would tag me on Twitter being like, oh my gosh, your name's here, this is so cool, we used to watch Toonami together, now you're here. And it just meant a whole lot to me.
Not gonna lie, I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit. Seeing one of my characters on a Toonami game review was the highlight of my entire year. It just was. I would watch them when I was really small because I was a little gamer baby. That's all I did. I was playing a lot of Metal Gear. I was playing a lot of Final Fantasy. So it was sort of I'm doing whatever. And I'm like, oh cool, they have a game review. I finally managed to catch one of these. I never catch them on time. And I would sit there and I would watch this. I was just a little kid. And then Ori ended up reviewed and I saw one of my characters. I'm 3 characters in Ori. So then one of my characters shows up and I was like, I'm inadvertently in a game review on Toonami. Oh my God. And I flipped my shit, so.
Dude, it was crazy. I literally down to because a lot of the time when we do these things, you can't say it until literally that people see the credits. So I was watching it almost this, kind of between my eyes, because I was I don't even want to see what people are saying yet. People are gonna, tear it apart. And right after the credits dropped, it was just this warmth of kindness from so many people, and that's been such a weird gift that I never thought about. Starting this career, getting to do it as the reason I do this stuff is because I love doing it. This weird byproduct benefit that is so beautiful that I never thought I would get is getting to connect with people like you and do stuff like this and communicate with fans and do goofy JoJo pose videos and stuff. Like, I love being able to really have a genuine friendship with people that we're all in love with this stuff. Like, and to celebrate it together it's an honor. It means a lot.
That is it precisely. It's like the long-term goal to be on a show, or at least on like a block that literally brought life into your life as a kid. Like the thing you would stay up late to watch, like Gundam Wing, with the uncut version, like 1 o'clock in the morning, because they actually would cuss in it. Oh, cool. And now that's you onto the screen. Brother, I'll tell you right now, you talk about something that gives you life, it is that right there. Oh, so there it is, man. It's your Super Bowl. It's finally making it there, man. To be on the iconic block, man, it was like a huge step in your career. And to hear myself on there and bringing life to a character, in this case, a villain, was dope as hell, because it's all your years of hard work and love and passion for anime and the block being put together into something that you're seeing onto the screen. It's like it felt like getting a world record. Like you bust yourself so hard to find like it's there, and you're seeing the accomplishments of your dreams right there onto the screen, onto something you've loved your entire life, man.
But, what made me in the end want to go pro is that I just realized how much I love doing this. I love acting, and that's the biggest thing. You can't just be a fan. You can just be a fan if you have the talent innately, but I don't feel like you'll enjoy it as much. If you're just a fan and you just want to work on anime, that's cool, but I feel like there's so much more to it personally.
Yeah, we're all friends. It's not a competition. There's enough work for everybody. Some of us audition. We may audition against each other, but whoever is meant to get the role is going to get the role. So it's all love, and we love to see new people get involved, because if no new people ever pursue voice acting, like we're all just gonna like get old, and like there'll be no one left to take our spot.
Yeah, Toonami's home. I think that's just the easiest way to put it. It feels nice. It's got that nostalgia, but it's also got that like, hey, we're here for you.